Kravitz. If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.
Good evening and welcome to episode 295 of the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your very proud host, Howard Kravitz. Thank you very much for joining us on a very special night. It is opening weekend at Keeneland, and this Saturday, it is Fall Stars Saturday, a jam-packed stakes-laden card. Win and you're in Breeders' Cup races. We're going to be talking about the all-stakes late pick 5. It's an incredible sequence with fantastic horses. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. After you do that, hit that notification bell so that you know when new content will rise on this show, and smash that like button. That'll send the YouTube algorithm here to the channel, and anyone who enjoys horse racing will be sent to the HHH Racing Podcast. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter there on my name tag at HKravitz, and scrolling at the bottom of the screen, my email, hkravitzhorse@gmail.com. Feel free to email me with anything. Please comment down below the video player tonight, whether you're watching, especially if you're watching as a replay. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the fantastic card on Saturday at Keeneland, because there are some very, very talented horses running. We'd love to hear what you have to say if you cannot join us here live tonight. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. We have Keeneland Power Picks, and very important, if you want the best deal, our best discount, you need to subscribe by tonight, Thursday night, midnight. 9 cards, $40, ABC grids, price spot plays, detailed all-turf $3 pick 3 analysis, everything you could possibly want for our Friday, Saturday, Sunday cards at Keeneland. Look below the video player, but you must subscribe tonight, Thursday night, before midnight. If you don't do that, you can still subscribe to the Power Picks tip sheet on a weekend by weekend basis. So the second weekend and the third weekend, and you can do that Mondays through Thursdays. Again, all this is on our website, hhhracingpodcast.com. Check below the video player also for information. And we also have regular Power Picks on Saturdays where we cover different stakes and different tracks throughout the country. Check that out as well. Fantastic website, hhhracingpodcast.com. All right, I'm going to bring on first my co-host. We got a very special guest tonight, Caleb Keller from FanDuel TV, fan of the show, friend of the show. He was on with us last year as he covers Keeneland like a glove, and many other great tracks as well for FanDuel. We're excited to have Caleb on tonight. He's in the bullpen. We'll bring him on here in just a few minutes. But before we do that, let's bring on my great co-host. First, from the East Coast of Maryland, Mr. Pete Visco, and from the Saratoga Special in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Mr. Paul Halloran. Guys, we are expecting a big crowd tonight. There's no baseball the way that things worked out. There's some very bad football on that no one cares about, including my Chicago Bears. So listen, if you need any other reasons, I don't think you do. We're going to have a great show and a great viewership, guys, tonight. How we doing?
Excellent. What's up, Paul?
Good evening.
Looking good. The crown's way hat, Paul. You ordered one.
I did.
I love it. We got to talk to Caleb about a horse named Shards that all of us, I don't even know if Caleb knows, all of us on this screen, plus Kyle Roscoe, has a small piece of. And Shards is running Sunday. We are extremely excited about that. We'll talk about that very briefly with Caleb. Guys, right before we bring on Caleb, I just want to recognize some breaking news outside of the horse racing world. Dick Butkus, a fantastic football player and a legend here in the Chicago area, just passed away. And Paul, I just asked you, you've got Pete and I by a few years. You didn't have the chance to see Dick Butkus in person, but the guy was the most intimidating football player for years and really did a lot of good things here in the Chicago area. So our condolences to Dick Butkus and his family. Pete, I don't know if you've seen the highlights of Dick Butkus. I'm sure you have, but the guy was an absolute monster.
Yeah, plenty.
Hence Monster the Midway, by the way.
I didn't know that either. I hadn't seen that come across. So that's that sucks to hear.
Yeah, Paul, he was one hell of a football player. I can tell you that.
Yeah, he really was. I mean, and he was, he'd do whatever he could to beat you. And if he had to cross the line of the rules in that pursuit, so be it.
Well, that happened in the 60s and early 70s just a bit. So,
God, I don't know. I don't know how many games he would complete in the way they call things now.
Oh, yeah. He a few 15-yard unnecessary roughness penalties.
Oh, forget it. Yeah. But no, he was a tough guy. He wasn't the biggest guy in the world either. He was just, if he were hurt, God help the trainer who tried to get him off the field. Wasn't happening.
No, he was just a mean son of a gun. But anyway, fantastic football player. Let's check the chat real quick. Michael Austin is here. Can't wait. Would have also been cool for you guys to do that Breeders' Cup Pick 6 with. So we're going to, Michael, if you subscribe to the Power Picks, and I think you do, Michael, but whether you do or don't, and Pete and Paul don't even know this, but the second portion of this Saturday's Power Picks tip sheet, which I write, is going to cover all the stake races at Santa Anita. And guys, I'm going to include some Pick 6 strategy with that bet. So Michael Austin, if you subscribe to the Power Picks, you will get information on that. There's so many stake races this weekend, guys. It's hard to cover everyone. Big Gary Colaroso is here. Happy Keeneland. What's up? Simon O'Neill from overseas is here. What's up, Simon? Stephen Vanderbrook, good evening. Yes, please smash that like button. We've got 14 smashes. Let's get 100 smashes on there. Ralph Conti, of course, Pete, loves an Italian in on Saturday. We'll talk about in Italian for the Italians. Let's see. Penn State Scott is here. All right. So we got all the great players here. Let's go ahead and bring on first our special guest handicapper. Like I said, he was with us last year. Very happy to have him on again. He's going to be covering Keeneland exclusively for FanDuel TV. I'm assuming he's in Lexington already right now. Let's bring him on, the one and only Caleb Keller. Caleb, how you doing tonight?
Howard, Pete, Paul, glad to be on with you. I've been looking forward to this.
What's up, man?
Thanks for coming on. I want to let everyone
Caleb
know
might be. I thought he might be coming to us live from the bar at Tony's, but he looks like he's in a more sedate location.
I'm in the original house growing up. I spent a few days in Indiana with my family, and then early tomorrow morning we'll head down to Lexington. It's about an hour and 15 away.
Very cool. For people that don't know, Caleb, like you said, you're from Indiana. I mean, Keeneland's always been your track. You love Keeneland Racecourse. Tell everyone very briefly your relationship with Keeneland.
So, yeah, I grew up, I was born in Louisville, Kentucky, grew up on the other side of the Ohio River in southern Indiana, and I went to Indiana University, Howard. Shout out to the Hoosiers. We're waiting on basketball season. But went to Indiana for sports broadcasting, and eventually I got an internship like 10 years ago with TVG. And worked my way up from there. So working at Keeneland was my original first place as the intern and the PA, and now I've been doing it for about 10 plus years.
Yeah, and you've been doing a great job, Caleb. And I know you've been doing a little more hosting I've seen in the last few years as well, which I'm assuming you enjoy that as well. And there's always some new fresh blood coming in and out of FanDuel that you've had the pleasure to work with. Caleb, I wanted to start with a little bit of a surprise that you don't know about. You'll like the surprise. Before we start our pick 5, there's a gentleman waiting in the green room that would like to say hello to you. Let's bring on this young man from the University of Kentucky and our Bettin' and Boozin' show co-host, Mr. Noah Maher.
This is going to be. What's up, Noah?
How you doing, Caleb?
I'm doing well, man. Honestly, not to sound like I'm too many years ahead of you, but, man, I'm really proud of you for the fact that you came in with a lot of passion. I ran into him and his mom one night at a restaurant downtown Kentucky, and he's looking at different schools, and, when you got the passion for horse racing like you do and the work ethic, I know you're going to be doing big, great things.
I appreciate those kind words.
Noah, tell everyone a little bit what you did with Caleb last fall, correct?
Yeah. No, spring, sorry.
Spring, sorry.
Yeah, so like you said, I met him in spring of 22, just visiting the campus, and I ended up running into him in that restaurant. And then ever since then, he's been super gracious to me and my family. He let me shadow him one day at Keeneland last spring. So I got to see him do a bunch of interviews and, just what he does on a daily basis. And he actually ended up interviewing me before the last race, which I was definitely not ready for. And that was probably the first time I had talked with a microphone and in front of a camera, which I'd like to say I'm a little bit better at now, but kind of still working on it. But anytime that he's gone to a certain location to cover races like on TVG or FanDuel, I try and go and say hi as much as I can because he's just been so gracious over the course of the time that we've known each other. So
it's interesting to know that you brought up when you were on air. Let's take a look. No, I'm just kidding. I don't have it. No, I was like, wait a minute, I wasn't ready for this. Caleb, Noah was, just a fan of this podcast. I believe last year he was in the live chat. And we got to know each other a little bit. I met him in person, and now he's co-host on our Wednesday night shows called Bet and Boozin', which is for young men in their early 20s, and it knows almost at that point who just love horse racing. I think it's very important to get the younger generation involved. Caleb, what advice do you have for Noah or anyone that might be watching who's of that Gen Z age that wants to get into horse racing?
I mean, exactly what he's doing, making that UGC, user-generated content, was what we learned, in broadcasting school. And now everybody's got that outlet to be able to do that. I remember my sister, when I was in college, took me to an event in Louisville, and it was a chance to meet John Asher. And, I recorded a podcast the day before of all the races at Churchill. And I remember I gave him that DVD, or gave him the CD and a big notebook and all these. I don't think I picked one winner out of the 9, but nevertheless, I gave it to him and got the CD into his car. So, just doing what you're doing, that betting and boozing is great. Everybody here has kept me company in Los Angeles in that slow traffic. So I appreciate the consistency of what you guys do and also the expertise.
Well, thanks, Caleb. And no, any final thoughts? Caleb, I'm not sure. I think you know this, but I'm going to be down there this weekend along with Kyle Roscoe, who's the host of our Bet and Boozin' show. Of course, Noah's going to be there. We have some green room access, Caleb. You're familiar with that. Mr. Jim Goodman took care of us, so we're happy we're going to be in the green room actually Saturday and Sunday. But Noah, any final thoughts for Caleb before we let you go and start our handicapping?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to come on and say hi. I'll let you guys do your thing with Keeneland Saturday. Important to mention that we did just get a little bit of rain, so keep that in mind.
It's supposed to rain a little, not heavy rain, but it's going to rain for a few hours, I think, right? In Lexington,
yeah,
that's
just
right.
A little sprinkling the last couple hours, and then I think around midnight tonight, not anything too crazy, but just a little bit of moisture.
Okay, well, listen, we appreciate the weather update from Noah. Noah, thanks a lot for coming on, man. We appreciate it. I'll see you in actually, I'm going to call you after the show. We got to talk about a good ticket situation. I'll get back to you on that. I'll call you after the show. Thanks for coming on, Noah.
Yeah, thank you guys. Have a good show.
All right, take care.
We'll see you out there.
Hey, Caleb, you can Venmo him the money for all those nice things he said after the show.
Exactly.
If you need to.
Hold on just a second here. I got $40.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. God,
40.
enough for pick 4.
Cheapskate. Now that, look, maybe, he's going to be there in person. Give him a little bit more. Come on.
Caleb, I can't say enough good things about Noah. I'm in my 27th year of teaching high school math, and I've enjoyed it. But if I had to do it over again, I'd probably get into the horse racing industry at his age. And he's so far and beyond, what anything I would have done at that age. His handicapping at that. I mean, if I started handicapping, deep diving like he did at that age, I predict great things for him. And anyone that gets involved at that age, for sure.
The passion deep down in this game. Everybody on this screen obviously has it. And I mean, you could try to learn the vocation, and you could try to learn past performances and the TV or the radio that comes along with it. But unless you got that deep down passion, like most of the true race trackers do, if you got it, you'll be fine. You'll figure it out.
Well, speaking of deep down passion, guys, I'm very passionate about this late pick 5 on Saturday. Fall Stars Saturday. Caleb, tell everyone as I bring up the entries for race 6, the first one, just tell everyone very briefly what you're going to be doing specifically for FanDuel this Keeneland fall meet.
So a little bit of everything. First part of the card tomorrow on opening day, I'm going to be on the desk with Carruthers. And then for the latter half of the stakes races, I'm going to be out there mostly in the paddock for all the graded stakes races. So be going back and forth and talking to the connections, trainers, owners, and jockeys. And, we've upped the information graphically, starting with Churchill Downs. We have like the beyond the past performances. We're talking to connections ahead of time. We got, advanced stats, which we kind of haven't had before. So we really upped the elements to the handicapping, and I think people are going to really like it at Keeneland.
It's fantastic. And I definitely plan on going to the paddock on Saturday for several times. And before I even forget, I don't know if everyone's looked at the last race on Saturday. Wow, that is a loaded loaded baby race that we're not
I
really
did.
we're not going to talk about, Caleb. Well, Paul did because maybe you, Caleb, thought that would end the pick 5. Oops. We had that issue tonight on this show. But anyway, it does not end the pick 5. But the last race at Keeneland, maybe at the end, Caleb, if we have a minute, we can talk about that last race at Keeneland if you've looked at it, because it is absolutely loaded. There's our picks on the bottom of the screen. This is the first time everyone on the screen has seen each other's picks to open the late pick 5, all stakes. There are some win in your ends. This is not one of them. But Caleb, this is always one of my favorite races of the year, along with the Shakertown. These 5.5 furlong turf sprints at Keeneland are just extremely difficult and a lot of fun. Here is the field for the Woodford. This opens up the all stakes late pick 5 on Saturday, about 3:40 Eastern. It is a huge field of 12, and the Moyline favorite is the number 2. It's a Euro, Living the Dream for West, and Karain, I believe, is coming in from Europe. Very interesting horse. You see our picks. Caleb, you're always going to go first tonight, so be prepared for that. You're going to go with a little bit of price. You're going to go with a Trombetta Rosario horse, Arzak, Kentucky bred, 15-1 morning line. Caleb, hit it. You're on.
Well, the last 2 runnings of this race, we've seen a great horse. We've seen Golden Pal, but we've also seen like a 3-5 favorite that was kind of unbeatable. So this is the first Woodford in a while that's been blown open. And speaking of Golden Pal, this Arzak's always had great class. You see down there at the bottom, last summer in the Troy, got within a length of Golden Pal. Second, a length to Bound for Nowhere. So the class-wise, we're there. I'm tossing out the synthetic races. Bad trouble 2 starts ago and still was flying out there in the middle part of the course at Saratoga. And this is a turf sprint at Keeneland where you can really launch. Like other 5 furlong and 5.5 furlong turf sprints hold up much better on the pace than Keeneland. So I'm looking for a couple launchers here with both the 5 and the 6. Olympic Runner, I've always felt like is getting better, and I like that late kick with Hernandez. But guys, I haven't really seen a horse like this too in this race before. First of all, we haven't seen a lot of Euros. Second of all, we haven't seen a lot of Euros as the favorite.
Yeah.
And third of all, the Euro that came in, blasted out to the front in a straightaway race and left the field in the dust. So the 2's a real intriguing horse. I don't think that, at least by my quick memory, Karain, I've never seen this rider at Keeneland. So the 2's a very interesting wild card as a favorite.
Very interesting. And if you see our picks on the bottom screen, Caleb, Pete and I, and by the way, Pete, you're going to see throughout the night, Pete, if you have a good night, I'm going to have a good night, because usually you and Paul seem to be simpatico.
Yeah.
That's right, my friend. Pete, you and I could have a monster or horrific day on Saturday. As you're going to find out. We've got the 6 on top, Caleb, Olympic Runner. We see it the same way. I think you make some great points about Arzak. Tell everyone about this turf course. You can definitely close, like you mentioned. It's going to be lush. It might have a little moisture in it based off the rain today, but not much. It's very fair, Caleb. And in general, I've seen you. I prefer to be on the outside, actually, than the inside of Keeneland, personally.
Yeah, I think that turf sprints, I always play that for a potential deep close that I wouldn't play at other tracks. If it starts to rain and get like borderline, they're taking it off the turf and it gets like really slow and heavy, that's when it's really hard to pass horses, especially going 2 turns. So later on in the meet, when you get a kind of a dreary day with rain that they're still on, go for the pace setters to keep going.
Yeah, I like I've got Arzak as a B as in boy. I play ABC tickets, Caleb. I'm sure you're familiar with that that type of bet. I've got the horse as a B. Let's go to you, Paul, because you've got the Euro. We need to talk about this Euro. Living the Dream. Is this sort of default to the Euro, Paul, or are you just like you don't think this is a strong field, or do you have any insight? Because as Caleb mentioned, I don't know if you watched any replays. I actually watched a few replays, Paul. This horse, unusually for a Euro, is very quick out of the gate and does like to go to the lead, but has not been able to get the job done going 5.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything. I kind of agree with you, Howard, on the inside, and I would rather have a horse forward going from down in there. I was not picking this horse, but boy, then I'm thinking, what would Highfield Princess look like in here?
Yeah.
And I think it'd be pretty formidable. Honestly, though, and Caleb brought it up, and I do agree. You'll have to see the board, but if this horse is a medium to heavy favorite, you're supposed to try to beat him. I agree with Caleb on the field being wide open. I think that's another way of saying not that great. I think there's a lot of equal. One of the horses I like is a Price Coffee Maker, who's outside, who's nothing special. Another horse I like is 9-2. So, while I don't really love the 2 as a favorite, he could, a Group 1 winner is a Group 1 winner is a Group 1 winner, and there's not much in here resembling a Group 1 winner. So.
Caleb, I'm just concerned this horse mainly goes 5, and obviously these Euros usually can go a little further than what it says on the card, right? Because some of these races in Europe, they have uphill finishes, and usually the half a furlong wouldn't be concerned. My concern here, Caleb, with this one, and I'm going to use him, but I'm going to use him very defensively, is if he doesn't get the lead, which I think is somewhat likely based on the fact that Americans just in general are quicker out of the gate and quicker in the first half a furlong. Can this horse even have the ability to stalk and finish? Because on the tape, I've not seen that. He's very headstrong and very quick and just goes to the lead and just sometimes finishes and sometimes doesn't.
And for a bullet too, it's hard when you've been going straight and making, right-handed turns.
Yeah.
That now you're on the inside and you got fast horses signed on here and a jockey that hasn't ridden here before and a fast horse. So, when you run 123 time forms, though, you're eligible to win like any turf race in America. So, the class checks out and the numbers check out, but it still could be a difficult task.
I think so. It's going to be very interesting to see. I'm curious to see what he's going to be, at post time. And speaking of odds and post time, Nick Tamro, friend of the show, does a fantastic job with the morning lines at Keeneland, and I'm sure he'll be pretty spot on. Pete, talk about Olympic Runner. Caleb already mentioned this horse. I've got this horse on top. So do you. What I see is pretty simply the best closer in the race, despite the fact that he's getting up there in age. He's been reborn the last 2 starts.
Yeah, one quick thing about the 2 we didn't touch on. Right now, that horse.
A little bit loud. I don't know. You're pretty extremely loud and live there.
I'm Italian. That comes with the territory. What are you talking about?
Normally I don't care, but it's a little, just to let you know. I don't know if you can turn it down a little, or maybe move the mic a little bit further away from your face. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, with the 2, actually, that horse is the 3rd choice right now overseas in basically on odds checker, 8-1. So it's pretty well regarded in the early betting as well for the Breeders' Cup. So with the 6, though, this is a weird race because if you just use time form as sort of a gauge, I think what I'm looking at it now, there's 6 horses with time forms between 111 and 117. So they're all sort of in the same speed. We know the 2 has speed as well. So it's not like there's that one horse who's just a burner. So I'm looking at it going, if a bunch of these horses are all sort of the same early speed and they all go out like we hope they do, then I'm going to go with the best closer. And again, if you look at time form, Olympic Runner has a 105. The next closest horse, I think, has an 88. So, what I like about this horse, he almost basically had a lost year in 2022. I assume there was something wrong with him. I didn't check, but he had 2 terrible finishes and then was off off until January. And then since then has just been sort of getting incrementally better, which doesn't happen that often at 7 years old. But I mean, I'll take a horse coming off the pace where we hope the pace up front is going to really heat up. And I think this one might just be getting better. And again, at 7 years old, you don't usually see that, but those last 2 races were pretty impressive.
The other thing I like about this horse, Caleb, I was actually at Kentucky Downs the first time ever, the weekend that Olympic Runner ran, by the way, courtesy of FanDuel. So thank you, FanDuel. It was a great experience. If you recall, Caleb, that weekend was speed. I mean, you could not close. It's when they moved the rails down there at Kentucky Downs, and the inner portion was the fresh part of the turf course. Plus, there was a lot of wind against them in the home stretch. Anyway, it was a speedway paradise, and Olympic Runner is one of the few horses that day, Caleb, that actually launched from far back and couldn't quite get there. So we're on the same page here in this race, Caleb. It just depends on which closer you prefer, it seems, correct?
And a couple things are sticking out for those that are watching on the YouTube live. So the 2-race sprint sequence back in July where the horse ran like 8th and 10th, kind of like Pete said, it was kind of like a lost year basically. But to go from that 2-race turf sprint to these 2 races, 95, 97, and basically could have won both pretty easily. And one last thing, how about that March 4th race? Was that like the loaded allowance of the year there at Gulfstream Park?
I say that up to the mark. I said that's when we didn't know what up to the mark was up there to the mark just yet.
Yeah, Smoking Tea can run. So Boyes, the horse that was the Ireland bred with Rosario, that horse was in this weekend with a chance. So that was a really strong race.
Very strong. It's going to be fascinating. I think we're all going to be spreading pretty deep in this race, I would imagine, in this turf sprint. It's very difficult. But we have a lot of people chatting. We didn't mention a horse we've talked about on the show, Tom Espinoza. Any thoughts on Beer Can Man? Very tough post here, Caleb. He's talented. I don't know if he's quite as good as he used to be.
I was really against him in the comeback race, and he ran 5th as the favorite. And unfortunately, I was really against him again at Preakness week. And then he won that race, and I was trying to give him some more respect. But D'Amato, it reminds me a little bit of like when Chad Brown was coming up. They're teaching horses to make moves from off the pace on the turf. So when horses get a little too close to the pace, like Beerman can, if he had it his way, would sit like a length, 2 lengths off. And that's going to be hard to do potentially in this race. I'd rather have a D'Amato like Motorius that just sits way back, winds up a big rally, and makes it easy. So Beerman he's been better than I've thought, at least on Preakness weekend, but I was iffy on his chances this weekend.
Yeah, I sort of agree with you. I think he's going to take a decent amount of money. And I'm against him. That wide post, I think, is not going to do him a lot of favors. Let's go on to the next race. Race 7 is the Thoroughbred Club of America. Let's bring it on the screen right now. There it is. It is for the girls, the older fillies and mares. 6 furlongs, $350,000 is the purse. It's a field of 7. It's not the strongest field I've seen, Caleb, for this race, as it has been in the past. The favorite is the number 6, Yaguri, for Brissett and Flavian, who won last time, actually coming off the pace a little bit, which was, to me, a nice change of pace and pretty impressive. But I think the big story really in that race was, or of this field, is not necessarily Yaguri winning the last race, but what the heck happened to Wicked Halo, Caleb? I mean, she was absolutely awful, and I have no idea why. Let's go with our banners. Maybe you have some intel on Wicked Halo. I haven't read or heard anything on what happened during that race. But Caleb, you are going to go with Yaguri on top.
Yeah, I mean, Yaguri is one of those Shacklefords that I think is in the category of, Shackleford, Bodemeister, Bellamy Road, Painter. These are sires that all their progeny are just like them. They want to run on the lead. And it's kind of what they're built to do. So the fact that Yaguri rated a little bit, I think, is going to be a plus if the 6 can sit off the 2. Cross out the 2 races there on the turf and the synthetic. A little worrisome that Yaguri ran so bad at Keeneland earlier this year, but that was a classic case of being between a rock and a hard spot. You're chasing Society, who's a tearaway horse with like 100+ capability, and then you've got Goodnight Olive, who hasn't lost a race in like a year, on your outside. So I'm willing to give a pass to Yaguri, and I just think that I'm not running to the windows to bet these Churchill wheelbacks, but I couldn't find a better alternative. I think the 3 is coming along pretty nicely, but from a class perspective, is the 3 ready to run by these foes? I thought the 3 could run a nice race, but I wasn't quite buying the win in. And, Wicked Halo, as bad as that last race was, she still got that super long streak. She hadn't missed the trifecta in 2 years. One thing I will say about Wicked Halo, when the horse was getting really good last fall, kept on running into these big, fast paces that she was barreling into. And when Wicked Halo's got just like an average pace, she hasn't had that same kick.
Did you hear? I read some articles. I was trying to find, I haven't heard any real excuses for that last race. And these girls can go one way or another very quickly. She's only 4. So to suggest that she wants to be a mama or that she's starting to, tail off, I don't think that's really fair. Plus, Asmussen's bringing her back quickly, which you would think exudes confidence. But Caleb, that race was so bad with no excuses. I'm going to try to beat her. I might be wrong. I'm going to use her, but I don't know. That was just too bad to believe.
I'd be so impressed if she could bounce right back for the win. And if you're going to be so impressed and the horse is trying to pay, like $7.80, not necessarily the best proposition.
The only thing you look at is
I think she might be favored, actually, Pete and Caleb. I know it doesn't say on the morning line. I got a feeling she's going to be favored. I could be wrong, though.
I mean, I think it'll be pretty close. The one thing you look at is that was by far the slowest pace she's faced. So like Caleb sort of talked about, she's good even when the pace doesn't have to heat up, but they were crawling in that one, as you could see by those time form fractions there. So maybe that's just what it was, and maybe she was just a little farther back than she should have been, and for some reason the kick just wasn't there that day. And I don't know if there's going to be a much hotter pace.
Go ahead and keep talking, Pete, because sorry to interrupt you. You're going with with Wicked Halo, as is Paul.
Yeah, and it's mostly that. I'm just hoping for a little bit more pace and then the bounce back. I just didn't love the race that much. I mean, I thought it was I thought the 1 and the 6 were pretty logical again. Rodolphe Brissett, he's 0 for 11 in graded stakes turf sprints. This horse wins races, but always wins at sort of the listed stakes level. So again, moving those horses up into graded stakes, but then you look at this field and go, it's not exactly a high quality graded stakes field either.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I think Uguri just based on pace and positioning maybe just has the advantage. But I'm going to hope that it heats up a little bit, and then Wicked Halo can get back to that form that, I mean, like Caleb said, she's, what is she, 15 out of 16 in the top 3 lifetime. She always runs a race. Even when she ran terrible, she still ran third and got whooped. But she's still, I think she recaptures those races before that. I think she can beat this field.
Paul, obviously you agreed. Do you want to touch on Last Leaf at all, Paul? I'll just leave it up to you on what you'd like to talk about in this race.
Yeah, well, to Caleb's point, I mean, Last Leaf is more of a board pick for me. She's always there. And I think Caleb pointed out she at least recently this year, she does not complete the job. But 7 wins out of 24 is nothing to sneeze at. That means she was 7 out of 15 at 16 at one point. So she's formidable. I'm just going to, Wicked Halo in 16 lifetime starts has never put 2 real bad ones together in a row. And if she were 6 or even 5, I might, be less willing to throw that out. But, as a 4-year-old who still has only raced 5 times this year, one thing about Steve, he'll run them. She ran 8 times last year, so she's only run 5. I'm betting on a bounce back, although, again, good point by our guest expert, Caleb. As the favorite, that's a big ask. I'm more looking at it from a horizontal point of view that she'll be an A on my ticket.
Yeah, I mean, you have to use Wicked Halo and Uguri. Guys, I'm going with a little bit of a fuzzy here. And I almost picked Last Leaf, and then I watched her replay at Alice Two-Back. Boy, she got a dream trip, guys. And it really wasn't close between her and Wicked Halo. So my thought with Last Leaf is, even if she runs well, if others run what they can run, she's not going to win. So I looked at Last Leaf closely. Guys, I'm going to go with Static Fire. And this might be just a horrible pick. But you know what, Caleb, this is a young 4-year-old filly making her second start off the layoff for Brian Lynch, who I have a lot of respect for. And you could say, well, maybe she's better on turf. I don't know. She's had 2 dirt races, and she's won both of them, including one at Keeneland. Is she going to have to step up here? Maybe. Is she going to have to rate a little bit because there is a decent amount of speed? Maybe. But you know what? I think I'm getting better than 7-2 in this race with the 1 and 6 in there. And I see no reason why she can't take a step forward, Caleb. She's working well. I don't know. I'm taking a shot with Static Fire. I think she's interesting.
And when that horse won at Churchill in the first dirt start, I mean, they were gliding around there. It was like 109 and 3. They weren't really even trying. Le Peru, confident ride, was sitting back in the recliner. So I mean, the forward's got a lot of talent. And wow, Christian Torres. I mean, obviously he made a big name at Oaklawn, and then he was right there close to the top of the standings at Churchill. So I mean, this is like the star of stars, Jockey Colony. But Torres is a guy that can make some noise with your Rosarios and Irads of the world.
He's very good. He just took a picture with Tyler Gias on Twitter a few days ago, and he's an up-and-coming guy. It just feels like the kind of race, Caleb, where on the win end, now horizontally it's a different situation, but on the win end, like, I just have no desire to take Wicked Halo Uguri at like 9-5. I'm gonna take a shot, and I think, unfortunately for me or other people, I hate to spread in a 6-horse field, Caleb, but I can't trust anyone in here. And so I guess I'm going to have to go like 3 deep, which I don't really recommend to people. I don't know if you feel the same way, Caleb, or do you think you should just single Wicked Halo and Uguri for a horizontal play and just take a chance?
I'm definitely finding other places to stake my flag. And I like a horse like Last Leaf, I wouldn't disagree that the horse got a dream run up the inside of Ellis. But if you're going to bet Last Leaf or Static Fire, you're kind of betting on the favorites to regress, which I think could be a possibility in this lineup. So, if you're taking one outside of the 1 or 6, you're kind of just hoping that, maybe Wicked Halo, something's gone awry, or maybe Uguri is going to bounce and doesn't like Keeneland. So there is a case to be made that you're betting the favorites to regress to find other prices.
For sure. We have a lot of people, by the way, listening and watching. We really thank you. Please smash that like button below the video player, and also hit the notification bell, because we're going to have a huge amount of content for the Breeders' Cup coming up, as of course FanDuel will as well. FanDuel is just a fantastic place for Breeders' Cup intel. I know you guys are going to cover the Breeders' Cup like a glove. Are you going to be out there, by the way, this year, Caleb, or no?
I'm going to be at Churchill actually the first week of the Breeders' Cup. They got that awesome works team, and I don't know if you all saw, but the Breeders' Cup Classic, you ready for this? Going to be the third to last race. I mean, there's always that. I guess if you hit it, it's not sadness. There's always a little bit of that sadness after the Classic. What do I do now with my life? But we are going to have the Turf Sprint and the Breeders' Cup Sprint on FanDuel TV after the Classic, and they positioned it around the football game, so be a little bit of a new look this year.
We know it. And yeah, you guys exclusively are going to have the last two races of the Breeders' Cup on FanDuel. And yours truly and Paul down there, who won the Grade 1 Gamble, by the way, in the spring, Caleb. I don't know if you're aware of that, but he won the Grade 1 Gamble at Keeneland in the spring. We will both be at San Anita competing in the BCBC, the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. So we are well aware that the Classic is not the last race this year.
I met Paul like the day before all this happened, and then I find out on Sunday that he won like $5 million in the contest. The whole idea of you never know when you're walking around ready to get rich. I mean, Paul, my man, that was unreal.
Yeah, we were talking quite a while. It was either Thursday or Friday, Caleb. Well, you were sitting on a bench, and well, trust me, Caleb, I didn't. I was I was as unaware as you were.
Yeah, it's a great story. Let's go to race 8, guys. The First Lady, and there's an absolute superstar in this race, but she got upset last time to a horse that's in this race also. $750,000 is the purse of the First Lady. It's a Grade 1. It's a small field of 8. The Moorline favorite is the Wonderkin, the wonderful horse from Chad Brown, who's got 3 in this race in Italian. For Rosario is going to be riding. She's a 5-year-old mare now. 4-5 Moorline. White Beam, who beat her last time, is 3-1. As you see our picks, guys, this doesn't happen too often on this page. Not only do we all have in Italian, but look, guys, we all have 1-2. I guess it's sort of the motto, the obvious ones here, but it's hard to go against an Italian White Beam, Caleb. This is going to be one hell of a matchup once again.
And let's see here. Chad has won 5 of these in a row, about to be 6.
Yeah.
And somebody brought up a good point that hasn't been a horse that has really solidified themselves as the horse of the year so far. I think Cody's Wish is right now, especially after that recent win, would be, the leader. But before that last win, he was coming off of a distant third, and like Mage has been well defeated, and Forte just got defeated, and even Brendan Walsh's Oaks Filly just there hasn't been a lot of horses that have like risen to the top. If In Italian doesn't get beaten to Diana, at least as of today, she would have been in the horse of the year conversation. And I think they'd like to have that ride back, 23.97. Like, what do you do when you're out there on an island with a 1-5 shot? But I think that when you go to Rosario, this is what I love about Rosario, and some people it could drive them crazy. Rosario is like that batter that decides whether he's going to swing before the pitch is thrown. And in his mind, if you could make the instructions very simple, go to the lead or go to dead last, that's when he thrives. So Rosario to step on the pedal, I think this one is a superstar mare that's not going to slow down.
Now, it says firm, Caleb, in the July 15th race, but as all of us know who remember watching the race, there was some moisture. That was not a firm turf course. And even Chad Brown said that before the race, I think it rained the night before, the day before, and he said he was a little bit concerned about the turf on that July 15th race. Plus, it was a 1 1/8. We just got a little info from Noah Maher in Lexington, said they got a little rain. It's not going to rain at all Saturday, and it's supposed to clear out by like early, tomorrow morning on Friday. So I'm assuming Saturday of Nun's race, it's going to be firm. I don't think it's going to be like lightning quick, but I'm guessing the turf on Saturday will be just fine for an Italian.
And White Beam, obviously, the White Beam got a tiny bit rank in that. Things kind of fell well for White Beam because I think in the beginning stages of the Diana, she was getting rank, but then they grabbed a hold, and then they grabbed a hold in Italian, and then before you know it, it's like, all right, well, I'm sitting here third, length and a half off. Fev Rover is a real beast. Like the race that Fev Rover was coming into that off of at Woodbine, horse got like stopped in the stretch, Fev Rover, and cruised past Moira. But right here, for those that are watching on YouTube, they come out of the gate, and In Italian does what she does, which is break super sharp. But if you watch White Beam, there's just a tiny little bit of rankness where they have to grab a hold. This would have been a problem in a bigger race, in a bigger field. But right there, he's holding up. And now that's never what you want getting ranked. But in this scenario, sitting right off, and they're kind of holding up the 2 pace setters, they really didn't work against her.
Yeah, I mean, she won like legitimate. This was not like a fluke by any means. You see, in Italian has every right to just hold on here. But White Beam was really good, and I've been a fan of her for quite a while, Caleb, because I remember betting her in Maryland and other places, and actually singled her on. I think she was on the Preakness undercard, if I recall, and I singled her that day, and she goes by. But you can just tell if you look really carefully, this turf was not firm. It had a little bit of cut in it, and the Chads are not going to like battle each other on the lead. Can anyone push an Italian in this race early, in your opinion, Caleb?
Doesn't seem like it. I mean, the 6 is coming off a 25-second flat race. One more thing about the 2 here in White Beam. I know the horse has gotten better since they debuted in America at Aqueduct, but when the 2 debuted in Aqueduct, closed into a slow pace versus EV Jets. Isn't that exactly what the 4 and the 5 just did? Closed into a slow pace versus EV's Jet and just got beat. So, I mean, White Beam kind of had the profile of the 4 and 5 before that win.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the 6 is going to, show some speed. But, I mean, the 6 is completely outclassed. We're just going to be real quick about this race the rest of the way here. Paul, any thoughts, anything else you'd like to mention about this race on Saturday?
Yeah, I think I've solved the puzzle of what you do with the multiple Chad Browns. And when one of them needs the graded win more than the others, they win. White Beam needed a grade 1 win last time and got it. That scenario doesn't. I'm just saying. I'm just reading the form. That's all I'm doing.
Okay.
White Beam needed. They all want that grade 1 win on the page, whether it's a future stallion or a future mare.
Oh, for sure.
I'll be honest with you, and he very could be winning the Eclipse again. That was a terrible ride by Irad. He let that feel, especially going a mile and an eighth. That's when you really want to open up and make other horses. There's no way, I don't think, that anyone has enough to catch him if they've had if she opens up like she's supposed to and they got to come from 4 back. I think White Beam's a fine horse. I got her second like the rest of you, but especially going a mile, if Rosario does what he should do. Caleb was right on target about one thing. He will drive you crazy. I agree with that, Caleb. He will drive you crazy. He's the most talented drive you crazy jockey there is. My beef is kind of what Caleb touched on. I think sometimes he has an idea going into the race that he's going to do it his way. And even if the race shape does not fall into his way, he still does it his way. In any event, he's supposed to go and open up 3 or 4 in this race and never look back, I think.
Pete, we're looking at a $2 exact that pays $5.80 here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't think. Yeah, I mean, I agree with Cable a little bit. I think a couple of these other ones could maybe step up and even get second behind. But I love an Italian, as you could see in my little note there with the Italian flag. That I'm always riding in Italian. So, but I agree. I like Rosario better on a speed horse than Irad anyway. So I actually kind of like that jockey switch, and I don't think he'll fool around with this one. He fools around with the ones that are a little coming off the pace, and then you want to choke him. But when he has a good speed horse, he can get on the top and just take him away. And I think he'll open her up like we wanted her to do. I had one funny stat on White Beam. Chad Brown, who's won this race 1,000 times and is great on everything. Brown and Pratt combo, 2 for 18 going a mile in grade 1 races on the turf. That one it was random when it popped up. And I was like, that's kind of funny because you always think of that combo as sort of winning everything when they get together. So, but yeah, all in Italian all day.
The last thing I'll just throw out to everyone who likes to play trifectas, I would definitely try to beat the number 4 Jumbly. I know she's a Euro and people get caught up with these Euros, Caleb. She's already running the state. She couldn't go by every Jets. Jumbly would be a complete play against for me underneath. And it's worth mentioning because a lot of people are going to play the 3-2X trifecta, right? And it's hard to get any value anyway, but if you're going to play Jumbly, who I personally would try to beat in third, I'd rather go with like a New Year's Eve, or maybe you think Gams Mission can run a big race, or Gio Romantica. I mean, I see no problem with playing like a straight $20 try for someone and trying to get 6-1 on that kind of bet.
Gino Romantica, you had that big win last year. Obviously, that wasn't the strongest QE2. McCulloch's got a little bit better since then, but she was kind of a money burner at that point. And buyer-wise, that Beverly D wasn't horrible. With the 92 buyer, but Gaffleon from the inside, Chad, I could definitely see him going 1, 2, 3 in this race. But I was curious if Pete works off of the formulator or race lens, because you always got these great stats. And what I like about him is I feel like you're going for like negative stats. People try to paint the picture with positive stats. I want to hear some negative stats on some horses.
Pete's just a very negative guy in general.
I like to poo-poo anytime Howard has a horse that he really likes. So I like to sort of poo-poo on here. No, but it's funny because you'll look at it and go, I try and find something that's an outlier, and there's a lot more negative outliers than positive outliers, which is, I mean, I guess that makes sense, because especially when you start getting down to like graded stakes, not everyone's that good in them, but yeah, you see some and you're like, holy crap, I can't believe that scenario, that trainer is over in this situation. So yeah, you just come up with them. I don't always follow them, and they always go the other way when I bet them, and they always they come through when I don't bet them. So who the hell knows anyway.
Hey, Caleb, let's look in the chat. And by the way, we have a lot of people watching. Please not only comment your opinions in the chat, but ask questions for the great Caleb Keller down below. I'm sure he'll be happy to answer them. So ask some questions for Caleb. Let's take a look at the chat real quick. Trish Smith, who is a big fan from Lexington, Kentucky. She actually lives in Lexington. Caleb says just single in Italian and move on. Singh says, don't sleep on Evie Jets. I've got a ton of respect for this horse, because this horse has put me in a locker, stuffed me in a locker a bunch of times this year, but I don't see it on Saturday. Simon O'Neill, who's from the UK, actually, Caleb, watching live in Europe, said a lot of fancied horses from Europe won't run in the Breeders' Cup Mile. You can get 20-1 for In Italian. I don't know. Chad has said this week he's not sure if In Italian would go to the mile, or maybe try to stretch out like Day at the Spa or other horses, try to stretch out. If you owned an Italian, let's say she wins this race, Caleb, where would you go? I'd almost be tempted to run her in the Philly Mare Turf and just try to wire that field, personally.
I think mile 100% here on this one, because, like Costa Creed keeps on stretching a mile, but that's like at Saratoga. There's Annapolis. Let's see if he can get back on track. But there's not a lot of scary American milers. And the way that the American Filly and Mare Turf set up is very disadvantageous to the American Fillies, because if you're going that long, let's see, it was a mile and 3/16, they don't write grade 1 races. So it's always like significant forms trying to reach out and grab more distance, or In Italian trying to grab more distance. The Euros have got them over a barrel when they go at the Filly and Mare Turf distance.
Yeah. I think a lot of it's going to depend on who's entered. I've heard mixed reviews about who's coming over from Europe. Some of their best ones, fillies, are maybe not coming over for the Philly and Mare Turf. We'll just have to see. Quick question from Richard Avalar, and then we're going to move on, guys. This is for you, Caleb, obviously. How old was Caleb when he started TVG, and who was your favorite horse?
Let's see here. I was 22 or 3, and I'm going to say my favorite horse would be Groupie Doll. And it kind of tied into when I first started there. So, I was a little bit in with the clockers. Shout out to John Nichols, who doesn't really share his information, but one way or another, I was kind of finding out some things. But, I heard that Buff Bradley really had like a really strong runner. And her first start on the turf, she ran 8th. But I remember she came back on one of the first original Friday nights, and she won with like Greta Kunzweiler at 13-1, won big. And by the time she got to Keeneland, as the intern, that's the horse I gave everybody in like the production meeting. And she actually lost that race, but she was like 10 wide and like got beat a nose. And, everybody's like, wow, this guy might have a little bit of the inside here. So, and Groupie Doll, actually, Buff Bradley invited me out to see her in between her Breeders' Cup. She was turned out at Frankfurt. And I drove back, the old gravel driveway in Frankfort, Kentucky. And she was hanging out with Brass Hat. And Buff asked me if I wanted to get up. I'm like, what, are you kidding me? No, but I kind of regret that. But Buff Bradley, how cool of a guy he was. And one last thing about Groupie Doll. She won the Madison one year. And I'll tell you right now, in all the year, a decade of watching horses, I have never seen a horse blow that hard after a race. So, I mean, she literally gave you everything every time.
That's awesome. And someone in the chat also just mentioned we sort of overlooked this. Irad is staying in New York to ride some of the runners to prep for the Breeders' Cup or try to qualify for the winning.
Fierceness. He's staying for fierceness.
Most likely, I would say that's definitely one of them for sure. So anyway, no Irad this weekend at Keeneland. All right, guys, let's move on. We've got a big race here coming up right now on the screen. This is for the boys. It's for the baby boys. Mile and a 16th. This is the Claiborne Breeders' Futurity Grade 1. This is a win and you're in. There are 2 win and you're ins, ladies and gentlemen, for the Breeders' Cup this Saturday at Keeneland. This is one of them. A mile and a 16th. It is a short run to the stretch. This is a short stretch finish, everyone. So please pay attention to that. I'm sure Caleb has some insight on that situation. It's, of course, for the 2-year-olds. Field of 9, big favorite on the outside is the number 9 Locked, who I was absolutely blown away with last time. Super impressive to me. There we see on the bottom of the screen, only 2 of us are going with Locked. Caleb's going to go with the coach. Wow. For the upset, Dwayne Lucas, Just Steal, your man Rosario. You're getting 12-1, Caleb. Tell us why the coach is going to upset the field on Saturday.
Well, I got a tip on Just Steal first time out of Ellis Park. And I'm like, man, I don't want to bet a Lucas first time out. But of course I bet. And the horse was off a little slow and obviously didn't do much running and was kind of out of mind and out of sight. And then I see this horse surfaces back. And I just think that this is like a tearaway speed horse, $500,000 horse that has their mind on one thing, and that's getting the lead. And this horse reminds me a little bit of Take Charge Brandy.
Mm-hmm.
Take Charge Brandy was up on like an insanely fast pace at Keeneland, tired badly, and then came back and went to the lead and wired the field at bomb odds. And when I look at Just Steal, okay, who are the other speed horses in the race? Well, the 8 was on the lead, but they were going 24. Okay, and my pace numbers are saying that Timberlake's out, but Timberlake is not good at the gate. Like, he's a big horse that's off a little slow. So back to Rosario. He's got nothing to lose here on a talented horse, 88 by or 2 back. They've already defeated the favorite. And I just see the 7 going on a giant send here and maybe getting, way loose for a horse that people are going to underestimate.
Is Timberlake running at Keeneland for sure, Caleb? Because he's cross-sending New York. Do you have any intel on that?
I believe they're going to Keeneland, but I can't tell you for sure.
Okay, because we our Ben and Boozin show last night with the aforementioned Noah Maher, they covered the Champagne. He's actually entered in the Champagne also, so that can make a big difference. We'll see. You talked about where's the speed. I mean, is Awesome Road not sending? Cox has 2 in here, so I'm assuming that's why I think Timberlake might actually be New York, Caleb, because he's got another one
sense
here in Awesome Road. I don't know, but that's just logical. I mean, isn't Awesome Road going to lead, or you think this one will sit?
I think that Brad and even Pratt kind of prefer to be stalking, which is hard to do when you're more towards the inside. But click on that race, Howard, because 4 days out, I heard, hey, Diamato's got a monster in here, and that'd be Stronghold. And then when I talked to my guy Rodney before the race, I said, hey, well, Brad Cox is a monster. So the top 2 were super touted days in advance, and then the 4th place finisher came back to dust off a maiden 50 or 150, I guess.
150,
at Churchill. So when you get touted horses in a strung out maiden, that has the right to be the best race of the summer at Ellis for the maidens.
Yeah, I mean, Awesome Road was 2 3/4 clear of Stronghold, who was 10 clear of the 3rd place horse. So that was a very fast and very impressive race. I'll tell you what, I never, we talk about poo-pooing on the show, Pete. I never poo-poo long shots, and Just Steal is definitely going to be that. And if Timberlake is in New York, Caleb, I would definitely be a lot more interested in Just Steal, just my opinion. But look, Justify, interesting, actually, European breeding on, Australian breeding, on the dam side. And Fastest Rock is more turfy. So very interesting breeding for this horse. This horse might take to the turf at some point, Caleb, too.
Yeah, I could see it. And I'm interested to see with Locked. I mean, I see that, when you look at Locked, this is a horse that 96 buyer, we haven't really seen too many 96s coming into this race. And one last thing I wanted to mention was this race specifically, as we watched, Locked just looked awesome here. The gun runners, you can't play them enough. Every race, every discipline, every surface, especially the slop. Got a theory on gun runners on the slop. But, okay, listen to this race, guys, in the late 2000s and into the synthetic era. You had horses like Wicked Style, Dawn of War, Joha. Who are these horses? And ever since they went back to dirt and Carpe Diem won this Futurity, now you've had Forte, Essential Quality, Maxfield, Knicks Go. So no race has puffed up their credentials as Locked is running off the screen here. No race has puffed up their credentials after they went back to the dirt than this Futurity.
And Caleb, I know you know Horseflesh very well. I love the way this horse is striding out. He's got a little bit of a higher knee action, but boy, I mean, he's not slowing down here at all. He gallops out hard through the wire. Looks like, he wouldn't blow out a candle. I mean, my only concern with this horse is being wide or getting caught up in a pace duel. And I think either one of those are possible, but it looks like he can sit off and rate. And I got to tell you, here's my hope, Caleb, with Locked and Pete and Paul. I got to be honest. I'll just say it now, a month out. I hope Locke gets a tough trip one way or another
Mm.
and loses this race. And I get him, Caleb. You know where I'm going with this. I
That's
get
where
him
you're
about
going.
5. I get him about 5-1 in the Breeders' Cup against the Prince of Monaco, on the West Coast, and Locke upsets the field. That's personally, I'm almost hoping he doesn't win Saturday. You know what I'm talking about, Caleb. You've felt that way before, I'm sure, about some horses.
Definitely. And these gun runners, from talking to the trainers, every thoroughbred is competitive. Like, it's part of the spirit and the reason we love them. But the gun runners, like, I remember Tyler Gaffleone saying last fall, talking about Goodnight, he said, this horse would run through a wall for you.
Yeah.
And like, the gun runners have like a different edge about them in terms of their competitive nature.
For sure. Pete, let's go to you. You have, sorry, we got to wait. I forgot. Yeah, you've got Locked on top, and you've got the 6 in second. We got to talk about the 6 a little bit, Pete, because I'm very interested in the 6, at least underneath. But I'll let you talk for a few minutes about this race, and we'll let Paul finish it out, and then we'll go to the last race.
Yeah, by the way, Caleb, you like the negative stats. If you want to beat Locked, it's not the hugest sample size, but Pletcher, 1 for 13 with maiden winners last out, jumping up to grade 1 races. So there you go. If you want to beat a horse that's probably going to be 3 to 5 or something, you can lean on that one for your just steel play. Yeah, Locked is great. I love, me, I love a horse that could come off the pace, and I don't think they'd be dumb enough, hopefully, to get into any sort of speed duel with this one, just because the closing kick is so good. I hope this horse just runs well, just because you like seeing a great horse run well, especially going into the Breeders' Cup. They're going to bet Baffert and Santa Anita if Prince of Monaco looks good. This weekend. I think he's going.
No,
right?
He's not running. The rest.
Oh, he's not running. Oh, that's right.
I don't listen. I'm not going to question Bob Baffert.
That's right. That's what I read. That. Yep.
Both of the favorites are being rested up, and Caleb, that's for another conversation. But I personally don't like that. But okay, anyway. Talk about the generous tipper a bit, Pete. I've got this horse in third. I think he's very interesting. Yeah,
I like this horse, and the added distance. So it looks like, this is a Paul special here. We're at the out of a curling dam and street sense on the top. This horse just looks like the distance will get better. 2 back was just closing. The kick 2 back lost to West Saratoga, who I don't love that horse. And this one had that miserable race on the turf, then comes back, runs well, was closing really well. And for you, Howard, had the super strong gallop out in that race 2 back, which isn't necessarily my thing, but just as much as he was closing, I wanted to watch it just to see if he kept it going. And you see by the breeding, it's most likely going to be. And then he just gets a much better trip. I'm not sure he beat much in that last one, but again, like we always say on here, if you're not going to beat a great field, crush them and don't make any trouble with it. And he did that, and he looked fantastic. And, McPeak won this, what was that, 2021 with Rattle and Roll, just rolling off the pace. So I like this horse, and if you can get this price, again, this is one of those where if Locke doesn't win, I love Awesome Road too. That horse looks really strong. But if Locke doesn't win, I think you can go a bunch of different places. And I know Paul's going to go with a different one with the Wine Steward, so we can let him talk about that one. But I think this is one where if you knock the favorite out, I think you can look for a nice price.
I'm hoping Hernandez comes off the pace, and I have a feeling they will.
I think they will. I think the last one was speed because you were just better than the field, so you get on the top.
If he rates them and there's fast pace, I think he's going to come flying late and be very interesting in the lane there, although it is a short stretch. Paul, the Wine Steward, you're going with a very interesting horse here, a New York bred, so of course he's going with the Wine Steward. Will save ground from the inside and certainly has some very nice breeding of Vino Rosso out of an Honor and Serve mare.
Yeah, I thought that last race was very good, and based on watching him, I actually saw it live. I just think the extra distance is going to be right up his alley. Obviously, the breeding says that as well. So, I think again, Locked could be a freak. I think, Howard, you're going to get what you want. I think Locked is eminently beatable in this race. So I think you're going to get what you want.
Wow. And not only beatable, but eminently beatable. Here's
especially relative to the price. Again, we're in this for value, and I'm not going to chalk out all night. I think relative to the price and the trip, and based on how he ran, and Louis back on him, of course, Louis was injured, why he wasn't on him last time. I do think Timberlake's formidable. It will be interesting to see where he goes. It wouldn't be surprising for Brad to split them up. But yeah, I am going to be traveling with the New York bred here.
Okay. Yeah, I think Timberlake is interesting if he's in. We don't really know. You see my picks on the bottom of the screen, guys. I don't have anything else to add. It's a great race, and I Rattled and Roll was a big pick for mine early in the Power Picks, guys. When we first started the Power Picks, I was only about 3-4 months into our Power Picks tip sheet and tipped out Rattle and Roll, and I was there in person when he literally did that on the outside, Caleb, in the short stretch and won it 7-1 for McPeak. That short stretch, though, does make a big difference, Caleb.
A little surprised that Awesome Road didn't get brought up at all in the conversation. And for those of y'all that like lock, you guys might get a better price than you think because they're going to send in on this Brad Cox horse.
I think so. I think so. He's going to be bet a lot. I like this horse a lot. $600,000 quality road. I have an AP Indy mare. I mean, this horse. I read some ridiculous comment. I don't want to say where or how, but someone said, "Oh, maybe distance might be a problem." Like, how and why does anyone think distance is going to be a problem for Austin Road? Now, maybe, he's too young and this is too much too soon, Caleb, but distance should not be a problem for this horse. This could be a future Derby horse, and we don't know.
Yeah, and taking a look back here, it looks like the Dam Orate I had as a full sister to Pulpit. So, rich bloodlines. I will say this, a little note on Awesome Road. Brad Cox has got a horse in the last named Nash, the number 1.
Yes.
And KentuckyBred.org has got the workout videos going, and I watched that. Nash was outworking Awesome Road pretty convincingly when they worked together as a team. So I still, that maybe chips off Awesome Road a little bit and obviously moves up the rail runner in that last maiden, but I've seen Awesome Road get outworked by a first-time starter.
Caleb, I watched that, and kudos to Kentucky, for having those works on. I watched that work. I was like, wait a minute, that's Awesome Road next to Nash. That Nash is the rail horse, by the way, everyone, in the last race for Godolphin there at Keeneland. But he's got some real runners to face in that last race. All right, guys, speaking of last races, let's get to it. And by the way, the Bears are up 7-0, just so anyone cares, which is crazy to me. Maybe they're going to do it for the Buckus family tonight. Who knows? But we'll see. Long way to go. The Bears had a little bit of trouble closing things out last week. Caleb, if you're an NFL fan, you know that. Anyway, let's go on to the last race, guys. I'm going to go ahead and bring up right now. There's our picks on the bottom of the screen. And Caleb is getting a little bit creative. And boy, I looked at Annapolis so hard, Caleb. I can't begin to tell you why. I will explain why. Caleb is going with Annapolis. Let's go ahead and bring up the field here of the Coolmore Turf Mile Stakes. This is a great one. This is the other win and you're in. $1 million. It's always one of the best races of the year at Keeneland. It's a field of 9. Moyline favorite is the number 1 Master of the Seas, who just won the Woodbine Mile and did it very convincingly for Charles Appleby and James Doyle in to ride. You're going with Annapolis, Pletcher, and Pratt. Tell everyone why Annapolis is going to upset this field on Saturday.
I just think it could be a perfect trip alert. I just looked at the 9 as sitting behind Stitched in a Tone, which this is one of the slowest paces I've ever seen in this race. First of all, field size, we've had 12 and I think even 14 in here before. So this is a mundane pace. I even was trying to think could Stitched or a Tone go the whole way? I mean, I wouldn't totally put it out, but Annapolis, that's the first time he's ever had trouble in a race. And he checked there at the top of the stretch. Sometimes he's had trouble at the gate. But guys, look how they bet this horse throughout his career. I mean, they really bet this horse so strongly. And sitting there in third with Pratt, this is an angle I've really liked at Keeneland. Pletcher on the turf. He's always had a really strong ROI because, everybody wants to play him more on the dirt. And, he's going to get a big jump on, the Appleby and up to the mark and set piece. So I just think the 9's the only horse that's won on the Keeneland turf and won this big race last year. So I think he's still in good form. And I think he could get a perfect trip sitting right in behind the speed.
Caleb and Pete and Paul know one of my famous picks of the year, and it wasn't a good one. I was right and wrong. I despised Annapolis in the Kentucky Downs race because he was coming back quickly. It was Kentucky Downs. I thought he'd be over bet because the Casa Creed finishes. I could go on and on. I was completely against Annapolis. Unfortunately, I picked Churchtown, who got a 2-buyer, Pete? I think he got that day. Something happened to Churchtown.
Just a little higher than your normal 0 that you like to.
Yeah, something happened to Churchtown, Caleb. I don't know what happened, but he was second choice in that race. I loved him. Didn't fire. I am very interested in Annapolis here. Loves Keeneland. I think he'll sit a great trip. And the main thing here for me, and I'll let Paul and Pete talk more, Caleb, is even though I have Master of the Seas on top, I thought they were going to give him a break and let him wait to the Breeders' Cup. I'm a little surprised they're running here. I'm not saying he's not going to run well. I just find that a little bit odd, and I don't think the Woodbine Mile field was that good. I think this field is appreciably better than what he faced in Toronto. Pete and Paul, either one of you, touch on Master of the Seas.
Go ahead, Paul.
I think, I have written in my PPs here, I think it has prep race written all over it. I think I don't think because of the layoff, I don't think Todd wanted to go right in the Breeders' Cup without knowing. This race will, I think, inform his decision on whether they go and in what race. I think he needs to see something. This being a mile is, again, probably not his ideal distance, but good for a comeback race where we've seen him be effective at 1 1/8 and 1 1/4, very effective earlier this year. So
you're talking about now. I don't want to interrupt. I asked you,
yes.
We were talking about Master of the Seas, and you went to up to the mark. That's okay. That's all right. People understood what you're talking about.
I was being so cogent too.
That's right. Yes, I agree.
Masters. I think Master. I think the value in this race is beating up to the mark. Underneath, I think Master of the Seas is a stone cold lock.
Wow. Okay. So we're not getting 2-1 then, Paul?
Well, I mean, up to the mark is going to take money. I mean, this was widely considered when, as of June, considered the best American male turf horse, right?
By far.
So
not even close.
By far. So, and he hasn't lost. He just got hurt. So I think he's going to take money. So that might, I don't know if you're going to get 2-1 on Master of the Seas, but certainly you're going to get more than you would if Up to the Mark didn't show up here.
Caleb, what do you do with Master of the Seas? I mean, he was meant to go in the Arlington Million. Todd said he had a hiccup, which in horse racing means more than a hiccup, to me at least. Extremely talented. I might not even use him at all in the pick 5. I mean, if he wins this race off the layoff, if he wins this race, I would say 2 things. He has a chance to win either Breeders' Cup Mile or the Turf Classic, and or Annapolis and Master of the Seas just don't fire. I guess all that's possible.
For Up to the Mark, that was like a freaky race in an allowance in January. You don't see horses come from the back of the pack to not only win, but to win by 4. That's a really crazy line. And then we mentioned that the next allowance was obviously the best allowance or one of them of the year. Little concerned that, his worst race was at this short distance at Keeneland. That Ches Pierre race was kind of a weird, obviously, horse got loose. But one last thing I hear on the one, guys, the North American assault for Appleby has already begun there at Woodbine. But Appleby had 5 different races he was represented in the last Breeders' Cup, and he won 3 of them. But do you realize he had the fastest closing quarter in all 5 races that he was in? Silverknot lost by a nose, but Silverknot had a slightly faster closing quarter than Victoria Road. And he also had the horse that finished 3rd in the turf sprint, who was absolutely flying. So in terms of late kick, even Chad Brown and Diamato can't replicate the Appleby late kick.
No, I mean, Appleby actually he's not been quite as good this year, actually, Caleb, in the United States. He wasn't as good in the spring, but he might be gearing up right now. Let's see. I'm just looking at the chat, guys. We're talking. Pete, you can chime in on this race. You've got 152. You've got the other Euro in the mix also.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's mostly 1-5, but Indestructible is. I mean, look at those races coming out of that's coming out of monster races. Paddington, Kinross. I mean, these are monster horses there. So just from a class alone, you feel like this horse could be. You figure if this one came over and was in another race without Up to the Mark and Master of the Seas, this would be a horse that would probably get bet down pretty strong. It's just going against 2 other monsters, so it's just not going to take the same money. I mean, I think for Up to the Mark, I like what Caleb said. I think the distance is going to be a little bit short. It's going to be a little bit short for him, especially off the layoff. That was the only reason why. I think if he was coming in fresh off a race and didn't have any hiccups, I would take Up to the Mark over Master of the Seas. But I think the shortness, I don't imagine he's going to be super cranked for this one. I imagine this is, hey, let's just get him back. Let's just get him on the track. hopefully he runs well enough to then just go into the Breeders' Cup, wherever, I assume the Breeders' Cup turf, and take the shot there.
Caleb, it feels like Up to the Mark is going to just take back, just close like an absolute monster in the final quarter and run a really good second or third and be a major factor in the Breeders' Cup. That's how I see it. But on Saturday specifically, I don't like him. If he wins that race, I'd be really impressed. Caleb, we've gone a little bit over the time. I apologize for you. I know you got a big day tomorrow. Let's get to your pick 5, and then we'll let you go for the night. So let's go through our pick 5s. Caleb's pick 5. $96. Everybody ready to write it down. I asked for $100 or less. He's going 2, 5, 6, 11 with 1, 2, 3, 6 with 3 6, 7, 9 with 1, 5, 9. He's going 3 deep in the last race. $96. Caleb, for all the horizontal players out there, please describe your theory, your analysis, your strategy on the slate pick 5.
Well, I mean, I guess we could all look foolish if White Beam beats In Italian again. And who's kidding who? In Italian obviously be like the most singled horse all day, but it just looks like, a bingo square to me. And if somebody can beat her, then I'll take the losing ticket and be very impressed with the horse that did that. The TCA, I included the 2 as well. The 2 is getting better. It looks like Ugiri is better than the 2 Fire on Time, but there's some regression potential in there. 2, 5, 6, 11 to start. I thought somebody could really come closing. I did half-heartedly throw Beer Can Man in there. In the Futurity, I'm still rocking with the coach. I mean, one day they're going to build a statue for this guy, and if he's got one last grade 1 upset crescendo, it's going to be on the front end. I'm looking for the 7 on a big swing there, 3, 6, 7, 9. And then in that last race, Master of Seas, Up to the Mark, and also there on the outside, Annapolis.
I love the ticket. We appreciate your analysis, Caleb, but we'll be pulling for you in Just Steel. I'm going to use them defensively just in case, especially if Timberlake is not in the race.
I won't be pulling for him, Caleb.
Right,
no,
Pete,
I'm not going to be pulling because I don't think he's going to be on my tickets necessarily. I don't like Lucas, so he's not going to be on my tickets. So I'll be rooting against. No offense.
That's all right. Caleb,
I love it. Listen, you guys have great banter back and forth, and like Pete just said, you guys don't always agree. You guys got a healthy amount of disagreement in your handicapping. Always very researched and poignant, and like great stats. So, like I said, what gets me through long car rides, guys? I was driving out to Santa Anita every day. The minimum drive one way was like 57 minutes, and my maximum was like 226. So I can tell you that you all on the podcast has helped on a lot of drives there in LA. So you guys have done a great job, very consistent, and I'm really impressed.
Thanks, Caleb. I just want to let everyone know that Caleb reached out to us, and we're happy to have Caleb on any time, but he reached out to us specifically and said, Howard, I'd love to come on for the Keeneland preview. And I said, are you kidding? That's an automatic. So hats off. Thanks a lot, Caleb. Really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you, my friend, this weekend. And if you have a chance, once you're done with the races or you got some time in between or whatever, you're not going to be going back on the air, like to buy a beverage or something, and we'll have some good time this weekend at Keeneland.
No, we'll see you out there. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, Caleb. Take care.
Caleb.
Bye-bye.
Take care, man.
All right. Caleb Keller. Really appreciate it. Did an awesome job as usual, guys. Check him out on FanDuel for sure. Let's go to Pete, your pick 5. Your pick 5, 2, 6, 8, 9, 11 with 1, 6, with 2, 3, with 3, 6, 9, with 1, 2, 5, $90.
Yeah, this one, I feel like this is one of those pick 5s that can be super chalky. If everything goes a certain way, or you got to hope, I think, in either this one, I think this is one where you could maybe catch the price. And that's why I'm rooting for the 6 Olympic runner or the 9 coffee maker. So I went a little bit deeper here because I think Living the Dream might be the most vulnerable favorite. The one I don't like that much. I kind of like your 4 Static Fire a little more. And I would have had her on the ticket. But I think that bumped me up a little. I think it bumped me up maybe to 108. So I was trying to be nice and didn't.
It hasn't stopped Paul before, Pete. I don't know why it's stopping you.
Well, Paul's a rebel, and he's got that grade 1 gamble credibility that I just don't have. So I don't go over. You're on mute, I think, Paul.
Pete, I look at that as a guideline, not a mandate.
That's true. That is true. Maybe I'm too much of a rule follower. That doesn't happen in my real life, but I try and do it on the show, I guess. And then I didn't single in Italian. I probably would single in Italian and maybe add the 4 in that second leg. But I went with White Beam just in case in Italian decides to get run down one more time. And then you hope Generous Tipper can upset Locked, and that would really blow up our pick 5. And then in the last leg, I went with the €2 and up to the mark, just in case he's just awesome. I'm not an Annapolis guy. I don't usually back that horse. So I'm going to stick to that and stay off him one more time.
Yeah, I'll talk about my ticket. By the way, Trish Smith, Paul said, forget the budget. She likes Paul's thinking. Trish, I don't want to, deep into your personal life, but I mean, you put it out on Twitter. Aren't you engaged, Trish? Don't you have a wedding to save for a little bit? Or I don't know, maybe Trish is just, making boatloads of cash there at the track or whatever.
Well, she's spending our money. She's not spending her money. Right.
There you go. Good point. All right, let's go to Paul's pick 5. 1, 2, 8, 9 with 1, 3, 4, 6 with 1, 2, 3 with 1, 2, 3, 9 with $96, Paul.
Yeah, I threw Bad Beat Brian in the first leg. I mean, I like the Euro. Living the dream, but and I'll have the 8 as well as an A. But I just wanted to have bad on a caveman. I want to be spread a little there. Obviously, spread in the next leg, which is the come on screen. Jesus, how many horses is it?
That's the thoroughbred. That's the filly sprint.
The TCA, yes, the TCA.
Yep.
Yeah, because Wicked Halo is a tepid selection, so I need coverage there. I took all the thought out of just in case, and again, you're not supposed to do this in a caveman, but I did use all 3 Chads for insanity insurance because it just seems like that the highest price of his duet or troika or quad win as much as the favorite. So on my ABC, I will have only the 2 and 3 as A's.
Wait, Paul, has Gio Romantico won a grade 1? Let me check. I don't think so.
Yes, I think so.
Oh, has she? Okay.
The QE2.
Oh, she did. Okay. Well, then. Okay. Then
Yeah.
that downgrades the 1 on
at this track too, Paul. At this track.
Yeah.
How do you miss
Well,
that?
that's why I picked it. If she hadn't, I would have probably picked her.
Well, by the way, Chad said she's getting better. Chad likes Gio Romantica.
Yes.
Not necessarily to win this race, but just for the record.
No, but I got to tell you what, at 8 or 10 to 1, if you're looking for value.
Are you saying that possibly in Italian it might come off the rail? Is that what you're in the stretch? Is that what you're suggesting?
Well,
who's that horse coming up the inside? Oh, it's the other Chad.
Well, yeah, it's not going to be anyone other than another Chad.
Anyway,
I think I do like Wine Steward, but I think that Futurity is somewhat wide open, and then I'm singled at the end.
Okay, yeah, with Master of the Seas. You could do a lot worse than singling Master of the Seas. It's interesting, guys. That's why I love doing this show with you gentlemen, is because we all have like some kind of out-of-the-box weirdo picks within your sequence, but you have to, right? I mean, you can't just, unless you want to play a $5 pick 5 and go chalky. I mean, you can do that too. But I think we all like to price shop in certain situations, right? You just have to find the right situation. Here's my
I do think, Howard, real quick, though, on what you said, I think this is one of those sequences where you could do that. You could maybe play like a $5, $10 ticket and just go super skinny if you think it's going to chalk out, and then play a separate ticket with the prices. And you'll definitely you'll definitely cover that loss. If it actually, you'll win both depending on how you play it. You could still win both and still play the price ticket.
I've done that, Pete. I've done like a press up favorite and then like a wacko ticket with like like one favorite, just try to get lucky. We got a lot of people, by the way, in the chat. Let's see here. We got the wedding comments. Got some comments here. Let's see. Here, Trish. Also told the fiance to forget the budget. LOL. With you, but with you guys' picks, I should be rolling in it for a nice wedding budget. No pressure, guys. All right, no pressure for us, Trish. We appreciate that. Tom said, that's right, Trish, you'll have an HHH royal wedding. That'd be interesting. And look at Michael Austin. I saw Chad Brown at Tattersoil. The other day. That's the one of the big European sales out there. So what country is that in? What is that, France?
That is in England. I believe that's in England.
Is it England? Okay. Oh, you know what? French is I'm drawing blank on the French sale. I think Tattersall's is the UK. Yeah. Interesting. So, okay, let's go with my ticket, guys. Here's my pick 5. Now, you guys know me very well by now. How deep do you think I went in the first leg, the turf sprint?
6.
5.
5 and 6. Let's see. I went 1, 2, 3,
7.
Here's my ticket. 2, 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, 11. With 1, 3, 4, 6. With 3. With 3, 9. With 1, 4, 9. $84 ticket. Guys, we didn't even talk about set piece. We really sort of screwed the pooch on that one because set piece just won the Arlington Million, and I've been chasing that horse for a long time this year, and then of course didn't use him in the Million. But he's in really good form, and he's run very well at Keeneland. I would just caution everyone to take a look at the number 4 set piece in the Coolmore Mile. We didn't talk about him. He's run well at Keeneland. He's in good form. I don't think he's absolutely impossible. Anyway, I don't have up the mark there at all. I'm spreading in the first leg because it's a turf sprint, and who the F knows. I'm spreading the TCA, guys. I just don't trust Yaguri and Wicked Halo, and I could be totally wrong, but I got to spread a little. I'm singling in Italian. I mean, I made the mistake of the Grade 1 gamble, Paul, if you remember, trying to beat in Italian with, was it with the Moonlight, the Euro? I can't remember. Was it with the Moonlight, I think, right? Stupid me.
Yes.
Fool me once, fool you, fool me twice, shame on whatever Anyway,
I used an Italian.
Yeah, no, you were smarter than me, of course. I'm singing in Italian, guys. Pete, I'm not messing around in the Futurity. I mean, I'm going to use the 6 defensively, but I think locked with any decent trip is an absolute monster. I think you can easily win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and I like Awesome Halo. I'm a little concerned about the pace situation, but I don't. If there was a closer I really liked, guys, I'd throw that one in there, but there just isn't. I mean, I think the 6 is interesting, but I don't know. I'm just going to chalk out there. And then I'm going 1, 4, 9. I'm throwing my buddy Annapolis in there. And again, I've talked about this in the show a zillion times, guys. Sometimes you have a horse that you absolutely hate in a situation, and you can come right back with that horse. I think that horse is interesting. And I'm going to throw him on the ticket. Guys, we're going to wrap up the show here. Let me put the banners up. Final thoughts to end the show. It's going to be a fantastic weekend at Keeneland. It's going to be a great weekend in a lot of other places as well. Paul, final thoughts for this weekend or anything at Keeneland?
I think I'm going to go finalize my Friday power picks and send them to you so you can send them out tomorrow.
That would be nice because people are going to be waiting for them in the morning. I would appreciate that.
Oh, and breaking news, Dracone will draw into the last race.
Oh, really?
Nice.
Yes, there'll be at least one scratch.
So the trainer heard that someone is scratching, basically.
I got an email, the ownership group got an email today. Yeah, the racing office usually knows if there's going to be anything, because people want to make plans to go. I'm not going, but Dracone will draw in, so lucky 13.
There wasn't a Tanya Harding. There wasn't a Tanya Harding situation like we discussed over text.
Everything's
right?
on the up and up, Pete. Everything's on the up and up. Pete, unless you sent some of your Jersey guys without telling us, Pete.
Hey, that's what we brought somebody over from the old country to handle it.
Michael Furio was seen on the Keeneland backstretch. What were you going to say, Howard?
Nothing about that. No, Paul was wondering in Vegas, what's the Shards Dracone double going to pay?
Oh, how about that parlay, huh? I think maybe I'll do like a natural parlay. I'll play Dracone to win, and if he wins, I'll put it all on Shards on Sunday.
Pete, should I put him on the spot and ask him who he prefers wins? No, I don't want to do that. It's like, what's the child you love more?
Well, I mean,
according to Deion Sanders, that's actually a real thing. But I don't.
The 12 post going that the 12 post is not any bargain at that.
I think Shards has an appreciably better chance, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion.
Well, and odds-wise, what's he, 9-2? He's getting some street cred from Mr. Tamaro.
Absolutely. Pete, final thoughts on Keeneland. There's big races at San Anita this weekend. The card Sunday at Woodbine, by the way, is fantastic also. You got to pay attention to at least watch replays or as much as you can. Obviously, family and other things gets in the way, but if you're betting the Breeders' Cup, you don't wait till the week before. You start your handicapping if you haven't already this weekend.
Well, what is there? Is about 17. What was the number? About 17 races this weekend that are Breeders' Cup, something like that, something crazy. So
yes, a ton of winning your ins.
Tons of winning your ins. Yeah, it's crazy. So whatever track you go to, whichever track you like to play, you're going to see some Breeders' Cup potential horses. So it's a fantastic weekend. It's probably the best weekend in terms of Breeders' Cup. I mean, some of the big ones aren't here because all these horses now decide they're going to skip races and just train up. But there's a lot of them here, and we didn't talk about the Aqueduct just because of those races that were moved, and the Hirsch is going now. It's a fantastic day, a fantastic weekend. Play everywhere if you can, if you have the budget.
And pay attention to the news. Slow down. Andy is not running in the class. Like there's a lot of things. Like every day, there's news coming up about the Breeders' Cup. Saudi Crown looks like is pointing to the Classic. I mean, there's just there's information coming out every day. So pay attention. Speaking of paying attention, we really appreciate you, everyone out there. Big shout out to everyone watching and listening. Our viewership continues to explode, and we're going to have fantastic coverage for the Breeders' Cup guys in a few weeks. The next, don't be strangers. The next 2 weeks, we're going to have some interesting, like out of the box, evergreen type of shows. We're going to talk about, who we'd like in the Breeders' Cup and who we don't, like from an odds perspective. We're going to look at different ways to gamble. We're going to look at some different things, guys, because it is a little bit of a downtime in terms of races now between this weekend and the Breeders' Cup. We're going to have a lot of info for everyone. So,
and Saturday, Sunday, like you said on the bottom, Keeneland today, our first two.
Thank you.
10:30 a.m. Saturday and Sunday. Me and Paul will be on Saturday talking about the early pick 5. So we'll have the whole card covered in these 2 days for the most part. And then Sunday, myself and Charlie Freeman from Bettin' and Boozin' are going to cover the late pick 5 on Sunday, which covers Shards and then the Idiomatic and Nest rematch. So 2 great cards, 2 great days. Join us live in the chat. We'll be live again, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, Keeneland today.
Thanks for the plug. I think we'll end the show, guys, with a wonderful comment in the chat from the great Thomas Spinoza. Great show, guys. Thanks, Caleb. Good luck to everyone and win some money. So for my great co-host, Pete Visco, and I got to take off the banner. Sorry, a lot of things to press here at the end. All right, for Pete Visco, and I still didn't do it. I'm screwing up the ending. Everything went so well, guys, until that point. Comments, there we go. Pete's like, I know, I can feel you. Okay, now we're good. For Pete Visco, Paul Howard, and this has been your host, Howard Kravitz, episode 295 of the HHH Racing Podcast. Crush your bets Saturday at Keeneland. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
If you have not followed his Triple H Horse Racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.